So, welcome everyone. My name is Becky Robinson, and I'm so thrilled to be here today with Bonnie Marcus. And we're thrilled that you've decided to join us today. And as you're coming in, I hope you'll take a moment in the chat to say hello. Let us know where you're calling in from. And, particularly if you are logging in as part of your professional development from your workplace, we realize with COVID that you may not actually be in your workplace. You may be at home, just like many of us are. But we would love to know what organization or corporation or institution you're representing as you're here today. So feel free to tell us about your company in the chat, and I'd love to give you a shout out. I've noticed already that we do have at least one gentleman with us today, but the focus of our webinar today is on women in the workplace. And so we hope for those of you who are attending who are men that you get some great insights about how to support women in the workplace. So throughout today's event, we will have several polls to engage you in conversation, and we also will be inviting your questions toward the end of the webinar. So please feel free to put those questions in the chat. We are going to leave some time at the end of the webinar to take those questions. So I want to take a quick moment to shout out a couple of the people who have said hello in the chat, Bonnie. So happy to see my friend Eileen McDar. I know she is not done yet. Amanda, you are not done yet in Cleveland, Ohio. Hi to Deborah in Pennsylvania, Michael in Mesa.
Oh, Nightingale. Hi, Nightingale. Nightingale was a client of mine, definitely not done yet.
Awesome. So Carmen is from Southeastern Freight Lines in Columbia, South Carolina. And Angie is from Mindful Leadership in Snowy, Iowa. And if I can just take a moment, Angie, we were talking before we started the broadcast about this not done yet line of merchandise. And Bonnie has a shirt that says over 50 and not done yet. Sister, I think I need to send you one. When I turn 50, we can wear them together. Judith is calling in from Northeast Wisconsin Technical College in Green Bay. And Judith, I'm betting that you're not done yet. We are not done yet, and we're so excited to focus on that today. Wow, so many. I just have to shout this one out. It's interesting. The Purple Practice Limited, based in London, and is a self-employed systemic psychologist. So thank you for joining us, and it's great to have you. So welcome to all of you. And like I said, we will provide
a longtime friend from Martha's Vineyard. Wow.
I love that. Well, listen to this, Bonnie. William is using his book, using your book in a dissertation, a biographical case study, one woman's senior executive leadership journey into a manufacturing plant. So pretty interesting. So just a quick reminder when you share, if you can use the drop-down menu for all panelists and attendees, then everyone will be able to see your comments. I'm noticing that some of you are only sending your comments to us here in the chat, but we would love for everyone to be able to interact.
Definitely.
All right, so I'm over 50 almost.
No, you are not.
5 more months, I'll be over 50. But for those of us who are here today, we really want to dig deeper and understand, Bonnie, what you mean when you say not done yet. So let's talk a little bit about what you mean when you say you're not done yet and why you're not done yet.
Yeah. Well, I certainly am over 50 and I'm not done yet. I feel that I still have a lot of value to contribute. And when I titled this book Not Done Yet, it was because women 50, 60, 70 plus still have so much to offer, not only their workplace, but society in general. When you think about your life journey, when you think about your career journey so far, and all the lessons that you've learned and all the wisdom that you've accumulated, you need to celebrate that and honor it and really acknowledge that you still have so much to share in an ongoing basis. And, not done yet. I especially love the exclamation point at the end, because we are definitely not done yet. And though society may look at us differently as we start to age, it's really important that we own the power of our age and really believe that we aren't done yet, because we're not.
I love that, and I love some of the comments I'm seeing in the chat. So Nancy mentioned that she is 55, which is a magic retirement age in Canada,
Oh,
and that she's far from done, just getting started. So I'm curious, Bonnie, how we react to those messages that we might be getting from society or from people in our workplaces that we should be done
yeah.
because of those arbitrary retirement ages and such.
Well, I mean, to give a little context here, for those of you who are women on this call, and I think it's probably like 90% or so, we've experienced uh, gender bias our whole careers. And for those of us, especially 60, 70, we really took this as the norm, that we were treated differently, we weren't equal in intelligence, et cetera, in the beginning of our careers. I mean, there has been some progress, but I think we still need to note that we still make 81 cents to the dollar of our male counterparts. Women still lack sponsorship opportunities and equal opportunities for advancement in the workplace. We still face the motherhood penalty in our careers. So we have experienced gender bias. But now, as we approach 50 and beyond, and we start to show visible signs of aging, we now face what I call the double whammy of both gender bias and ageism, because we're viewed differently all of a sudden. We're seen as less valuable, less competent. Oh, we don't necessarily have the stamina to travel and do our jobs. And it really boils down to, and this just not only makes me mad, it makes me sad. Society's uh, emphasis on youth and beauty.
Mm.
So if we don't look 20 or 30 anymore, all of a sudden we're kind of pushed aside, we're marginalized, we're subjected to demeaning comments. And the women I interviewed for this book, just some of the comments that they hear in the workplace are just, horrific. Not necessarily invited to key meetings anymore, workload redistributed. And many of the women that I interviewed for this book were not slouches. I mean, they were partners in law firms who were pushed aside. They were women at manager, director level, and really had a great track record. And all of a sudden, they were seen as irrelevant, over the hill.
That's so painful. And I'm reading a lot of comments in the chat, Bonnie, of people who are sharing that, criticism people might get because they've chosen not to have plastic surgery or use Botox or dye their hair. So I'm sure you heard that a lot during your interviews for the book as well.
Well, I did. I think it's important to note that ageism is so ingrained in our society that we're not aware of some of the things that we think and we say and how we behave. Very similar to the whole Me Too movement. There was sexual harassment, there was sexual abuse, but women kind of took that as the norm and stayed silent. And their abusers would make some comments, and they weren't even aware that that was harassment until the Me Too movement came around. And that's what my hope is around ageism and gendered ageism, is that we help build the sensitivity by saying, that comment you made that I was around with Abe Lincoln, that, I didn't feel really good when you brought that when you brought that up. And I know it was a joke, but maybe you didn't realize that it was ageist, and I think we really need to help. First of all, we need to be aware of what biases and assumptions we believe, but also we need to help point out what may be just kind of casual jokes that come across as very ageist. There is a lot of research that shows that women face gendered ageism. It affects our financial security going forward, because we are pushed out of the workforce earlier. And there are also studies that show that women face ageism earlier than their male counterparts. And that's because of the emphasis on our looks.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, I know before we talk a little bit more about ageist assumption, we do have a poll. We're very curious to see what people on this call might have experienced. So I'm going to launch a poll. If you are a woman 50 or over, please take the poll. If you are not 50 or over, we're going to ask you not to take this poll. But we're curious, which of any of these types of discrimination have you personally faced in the workplace due to ageism? And you can choose as many as apply. So my workload has been redistributed to others. I have been excluded from meetings. I've experienced age-related demeaning remarks. I lost out on a promotion. No one is interested in my opinions or ideas. I lost my job, or none of the above if you have not yet experienced discrimination in the workplace due to your age. So we'll give you a few more moments on that. It looks like people are still answering the poll.
I'm certainly very curious. When I was interviewing women for this book about their experiences, many of these popped up.
So I'm happy to say that look at that red line on the bottom. I don't know, Bonnie, if you can see the results, but
Wow.
47% of the people haven't experienced this at all, which is very encouraging.
Very encouraging. Yeah.
But it looks like, more than half of you who answered the poll have experienced one or more of these issues, with the highest being age-related demeaning remarks or losing out on a promotion, along with being excluded from meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really rough. So Bonnie, let's talk about those ageist assumptions that we may be making about ourselves.
Well, I think it's important to note that we absorb a lot of the messages that our society puts out there. That when you reach a certain age, you're not promotable, that you don't have anything more of value to contribute. And when we absorb those and when we internalize those, it's really dangerous because we don't realize how we unconsciously then hold ourselves back from achieving what we want to achieve, from continuing to do our work and maintain our status in the workplace. So if we believe that, for instance, we're too old to get promoted, or if we believe that we need to be young and pretty to be successful, then unconsciously we then it will modify our behavior and it will hold us back. So, as an example, say you believe that you're too old to you feel you're too old to be promoted, and you believe it. I mean, you've internalized it. Maybe you look around in your workplace and it seems that women your age aren't being promoted. Whatever it is, you believe that as you're aging, you're no longer going to be able to advance your career. What happens is then you're not going to do what you need to do to get the promotion because you believe, well, that's not going to happen. So You're not going to raise your hand. You're not going to share your opinions the same way you did before. You may not speak up in meetings. You may not volunteer to be on special projects. You may not be looking for sponsors or mentors. You may not be participating in networking to the same degree. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's really what I want everybody to understand, is that your beliefs, your assumptions, your fears can hold you back to the degree where you are perhaps sabotaging your own future. And so it's really important to understand and examine what those beliefs are and be aware of them and how they will hold you back.
So it's really interesting, Bonnie, to me that some of it sounds like it's unconscious and it's
Yeah.
influencing us even when we don't realize it, but some of it is conscious. And we need to combat both.
Yeah.
So we want to get some feedback from folks who are listening about some of these assumptions that you've dealt with. So which if any of these assumptions, let me see. I think that something might be cut off. So what we're wanting to know is which if any of these assumptions do you believe? So do you believe I'm too old to get promoted? I need to be young to have respect for my ideas. I'll never get another job, or I'm irrelevant. And so grateful to those of you who are sharing your thoughts on this.
Mhm.
Bonnie, I'm curious, have you dealt with some of these self-limiting beliefs on your journey as well?
Um, no, I didn't. Actually, the first one here, I'm too old to get promoted, is the first chapter in my book. And I lost out on a promotion when I was 49. And I reached out to my network and found out about the job at Service Master running one of their healthcare companies. And I interviewed for it and I got that job. And actually, my first day, I just moved to Chicago. My first day at Service Master was my 50th birthday.
Mhm.
But it wasn't on my radar that, wow, I'm 50 and I'm not going to get this job. And I think that it would have really made a difference if I had that belief. I wouldn't have been as confident. I wouldn't have been as confident talking about my track record, my accomplishments, and what I could do for that company going forward.
Hmm.
Everything that I could bring to them that would help them, reach their objectives, et cetera. So I did not believe it, but I've talked to many women who do believe it. And though I can't make a direct correlation between then they're not going to get promoted, in my coaching work, I talk about what are some of the limited beliefs you have, because we need to clear those out before we can talk about how do you navigate certain things in the workplace. It's a parallel track. What are the obstacles in the workplace and what obstacles you hold up for yourself?
That's really helpful, Bonnie. So let's take a look at these results. It looks like overwhelmingly the one that resonates most is I'll never get another job. So for women who may have lost their jobs and maybe over 50, that seems like the biggest one. And then I'm too old to get promoted as another. The comments in the chat are going so fast that I'm not able to really take them all in.
I'd be interested in knowing what they are.
Yeah, I'll do my best, Bonnie, to share some of the comments along the way. One of the questions that I saw pop up that's related to this assumptions poll is Deborah Cook, who's on the call, wanted to know if maybe many women are starting their own businesses because they have this belief that they won't get another job. So I'm curious what you've seen with that, Bonnie, through your research.
Yeah, I have seen it, and I do believe that's true. I think that women, as they approach 50 and beyond, research does show that they opt out, whether or not they've been pushed out. They certainly will leave the workplace. And my research has shown that it's because they feel unfulfilled. They feel that their contributions aren't acknowledged anymore. And they know they have value. And so they're going to start their own thing. Years ago, I did a study on women and ambition. And one of the things that I did was look at that by age.
Hmm.
And it was really interesting because young women, right, first coming out of school or grad school, enter the workforce and they've got tremendous amount of ambition. And it does dip as women become mothers, perhaps, or in their 30s, 40s. For the most part, it kinds of dips. But then what's really interesting is it shot up again
Hmm.
as women were like 50, 60. It showed that all of a sudden now, yeah, they have an empty nest. They know that they have talent and they know that they've got the experience to start their own business. And they do uh, sometimes leave the workplace if that workplace isn't really acknowledging who they are and their value. So it's interesting because the ambition is in the beginning, and then as women are in the workplace for a while, they're like maybe feeling some effects of gender bias, et cetera, lack of some opportunities, but then it shoots up again once they're 50.
We have new energy potentially. Well, so Bonnie, let's talk a little bit about this move from sad ass to bad ass that women can experience as they uncover these assumptions that they're believing and start to combat the ageism and sexism that they may be experiencing.
Yeah, here I just want to say that, especially when I look at the results of the poll, it seems that women who are, for the most part, on this call haven't experienced a lot of direct ageism. They may have witnessed it with other people, but they haven't directly. So I think what I really want to emphasize is the need to be proactive. And that there are things that you can do where you can take control of your career trajectory, take control and really own the ambition that you have now, recognize what you bring to the table, and do what you need to do to stay marketable and stay in the job.
Hmm.
So number one thing is to really own your ambition and declare your ambition. And I think it's important to be proactive here because there may be people in your organization, including your direct manager, who they don't believe that you're in it for the long haul. They believe that as you approach 60, say, or beyond, that you may not be as invested in your job, even though you are. And so one of the things I recommend is, set up a meeting with your manager and let them know you are still invested in your job, you're committed to doing your best work. And what does that look like over the next few years? What are some of the ways that your manager believes that you can continue to contribute value? And it may be moving to another department or another position, but at least you're having that conversation about how you can be relevant going forward and how you can, add value to the organization. So don't assume that people know that you're still really committed.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's really important.
yeah,
You have to talk directly and openly about what you want for your career.
it is. But, we make all these assumptions. Oh, everybody gets that. I've been here for a few years and I've done really well, and I think people assume that I'm going to continue at that same level. So that's a good one to do. Another I would say is important is to build a cross-generational network. And I recently did a Forbes post on this. We may feel uncomfortable because some of our younger colleagues may be like our children's age. And it may be that we have our own stereotypes and ageist assumptions about people in their 20s and 30s. And of course, they have their beliefs about us. And so it can be uncomfortable sometimes to reach out to somebody who is much younger than you are for networking. But the thing is, the only way we're really going to kind of push these ageist stereotypes aside is by having one-on-one relationships where you really learn about somebody and they learn about you, and all of a sudden they say, I have a newfound respect for this person, or boy, she's not over the hill. She can help me in some ways, and we've identified some things that I can help her with. So it becomes a win-win, not only because of what you gain from each other, but another side benefit is that you are more visible now. You are not just on the sidelines, and people will see that as you're building these relationships across the organization, you're really still in it. You're really still in it and invested in it.
Well, as I'm listening to you, Bonnie, it occurs to me that many of these tips that you're beginning to share are ones that are important at any stage of your career. So hopefully these are practices that you've had all along that you can continue no matter what your age. So I'm wondering what other tips you might have as it relates to overcoming these ageist or sexist comments that people are experiencing.
Oh, yeah. I think that, and a lot of the women that I interviewed in the book said that they would just kind of take some of these things as a joke. So there were comments made to them like, "Oh, you were around then, right, with Abe Lincoln?" Or, they'd hear comments like, "Oh, she's so over the hill. She's so old." One woman who said she was chastised because she wore pantyhose, that was so old because that's just what old women do.
Oh my goodness.
Another woman commented to me that one of her younger colleagues said, "Oh, look at you on Snapchat." Like just this kind of demeaning comment, like you have to be 30 to be active on Snapchat or whatever. And it's easy to kind of fluff them off and say that perhaps, it's part of the joke. But depending on who made the comment, depending on whether it was more hurtful than that and it was more directed at you, and depending on the relationship you have with somebody, I think it's important to perhaps outside of the group just let that person know how the comment made you feel. Because that's the only way. I mean, that was what happened with the Me Too movement, and it's the only way people are going to be aware of their ageism and their gendered ageism. And I'm giving benefit of the doubt that a lot of people just aren't aware. It's just so ingrained in our society that we just make those remarks, you know. So the first thing is that we need to recognize that some of these remarks should not be tolerated. When you are in an unconscious bias training for any of the other isms, racism, gender bias, anything related to religion, sexual orientation. None of those things are tolerated. You can't make comments like that anymore in the workplace. So this is another ism. And I think we need to kind of build awareness around it.
So I was giggling because Lisa said, not only do I wear pantyhose, I also wear a slip. And when I saw that comment, I just started to giggle. And then someone said, true, I think we remind younger women of their mothers. Well, and most of the time we could be their mothers, right?
You know that there's a great quote from Nancy Pelosi, who that I included in my book about being a mother and a grandmother, and the value that she places on it. And she said, listen, if you're a mother or, you know, a grandmother, if you're a mother, you learn negotiation skills, you learn patience, you learn relational skills, you know, all these things that I don't think we think about when we're put down, because especially like in the tech industry, right? In Silicon Valley, at 35, you may be the oldest. And once you're a mother, you're already in like a whole separate ancient category. But, you know, we need to own that, what our motherhood has helped us, how it has helped us.
Certainly so. So, Bonnie, I've been trying to gather some of these questions from the chat, and I want to make sure that you've had a chance to share everything you wanted to before we switch to questions. But the chat has been such a rich source of people sharing their experiences today.
Well, I just want to bring up one of the limiting beliefs that a lot of women hold as they age is that as they show visible signs of aging, they're treated differently in the workplace, and research does show that. And some of the women that I've spoken with about this really have panic attacks that people are going to find out how old they are. They have Botox, they have filler. One of my favorite stories in the book is from Lois Frankel, who is a well-known executive coach. She wrote Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. I'm sure many on the call know about Lois. And she shared with me that she was just about 60 and she had just had chemotherapy, and her hair turned white, all solid, not gray, she said, white. And she went in for an interview to be an executive coach for a Hollywood firm, right? Film company, top executive. She thought the interview went really well. She didn't get the job. And so she asked afterward, you know, well, why didn't, you know, can you give me some feedback? And they said, well, Lois, ours is a youth culture. And so afterward, she said, well, gee, I mean, I'm gonna dye my hair blonde again. And she said, and this is really important, I'm not doing this out of vanity. She said, look at Jane Fonda. You know, I think she's had work done, not necessarily because she's vain. She wants to keep working. And here she is in her 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And still working. So Lois was like, I'm going to do what I need to do to stay viable, no judgment. But many of us, I mean, my hair isn't naturally this color anymore. And I mean, many of us do what we want to do to stay more attractive. And there shouldn't be any judgment, but I think you can't lean on that as the only way to stay in your job and stay marketable. You also need to do other things to own your value.
So I noticed some comments earlier in the chat about people who look younger really wanting to hide their age to be able to kind of keep that ageism at bay. What do you think about that, Bonnie?
I know it's true. Ageism is at every age. So it can happen in the beginning of our careers. It can happen as we choose to become mothers. And it can happen at the 50, 60 plus age. I've had clients who have received feedback through one of my coaching programs that reaches out to their managers and colleagues, et cetera, that they come across as being too young,
Hmm.
that they need to change, look at the way they dress, the way they do their hair, maybe a little different kind of makeup, certainly executive presence, the way maybe they end their sentence with a question, and so we do get it at any point, I think, in our careers, and we're not necessarily seen as what we can bring and what we can offer. The focus from our society on the way we look affects us when we're young and also when we're more mature.
So here's a comment from Judith that's a question. She says, so how will we ever break ageism if we continue to capitulate to societal demands regarding our appearance? And then a comment from Marianne, sometimes it's done just to help us feel better about ourselves and nothing else. And then Mary, and I'll read this one, Bonnie, so that you can respond to it. She said, did you just say, do what they need to do to stay attractive? I'm calling you on that. So I know you really well, Bonnie, and I'm hearing your comments in the context of we can choose as women what we want to do to feel good about ourselves. And it's not about what society expects of us, but maybe say a bit more about that.
I mean, I talk about this a little bit in my book. My mother was very vain, and she lived well into her 90s and made sure she had lipstick on every day. And the importance placed on looks is a little bit in my DNA. I haven't had plastic surgery or anything, but I put on a little makeup every day, even though, especially in lockdown, I'm only seeing you guys on Zoom, And before then, maybe it was only going to Trader Joe's, but that's my thing, and that's what, and I own it. But there is no judgment whatsoever on anyone else. But I think if you feel good about the way you look, you show up being much more confident and you have a lot more self-esteem, because I know, when I have a bad hair day, it's just, it's not a good day. I mean, I think we need to acknowledge how we feel ourselves, and that's just my thing. That doesn't mean that it's true for anybody else. So whoever called me out on that, I do own that.
Thank you, Bonnie. So I definitely have lots more questions that I want to try to get to. So here's a question for you, Bonnie. I've been in my company for nearly 25 years. I face ageism constantly and run this constant fear of being perceived that I'm being paid too much for the work I do, because the perception is that I'm not as valuable for the pay that I make, which I've come to earn over the years through merit. So how do I navigate this, and how do I work around this fear and perception?
So really good question. First of all, I guess I would want to know what kind of information she has that she's perceived that way, whether that's in her head or whether she has had direct feedback from certain people or comments, because I think we really have to be aware of all our stuff, all the baggage that we carry. The first step to dealing with any of this is to really acknowledge what some of our fears and assumptions are.
Hmm.
And be honest with yourself. In the book, I say, okay, unplug, put your feet up, pour a glass of wine if you want, do whatever, so that you can really connect deeply with some of your stuff. Because until you take an honest view of what that is, you can't deal with it until you really uncover some some of these things, then you're not going to then uncover how your actions and behaviors may be a result of it, and whether that serves you or that doesn't serve you, because these are things we can control. And that's what I really want to emphasize. But you need to do the work. If you believe that you need to look young and attractive to be successful, then own that.
Mm-hmm.
And is that really true? Is it really an outward makeover that you need, or an internal one where there are ways where you can showcase your value and showcase your talent, rather than emphasizing, your looks?
Well, I think a lot of what you're saying, Bonnie, is that we need to be able to overcome those assumptions that we have
Yeah.
and make the contribution in the world that we want to make, regardless of how people might view us due to our age or appearance.
We need to defy the ageist assumptions that keep us small, because staying connected to everything that we still have to contribute is really important, and not be put down by some of this gendered ageist stuff.
So here's a question for you, Bonnie. Someone who's an independent consultant is wondering, will aging keep me from getting work?
Um, Let me say, if you believe it will, then it will.
Hmm.
And I know that sounds like, oh, that's kind of woo-woo.
Oops.
But it really is true. You have to lead with everything that you can bring to your future clients. What is the benefit of working with you? What you are going to achieve for them, and make that a really strong case. And use, your experience to position yourself well, and make sure that when you're having those conversations as a consultant, that you are letting your potential client know what you can do for them going forward. So I think we reached a certain point where we feel more comfortable talking about 10 years of experience doing this, and I've been with this company, I led this company for X amount of years. I think that's great, but I don't believe that's the best way to dwell on 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 a call like that, say a sales call or positioning yourself. You want to talk about how you can take that organization forward.
Hmm.
To me, that's much more powerful and
So
authentic.
focusing on the value that you can bring rather than carting out your years of experience.
Well, you certainly mention them. I'm not going to discard them, but that's not the only thing you bring to the table. Leverage that.
So here's an interesting thought or question. Our listener says, instead of competing with youth culture, what if you sought out organizations that are a more mature culture? So what do you think about that, of, vetting where you want to work based on their demonstrated valuing of a more mature approach?
Well, I definitely believe in vetting out future companies and employers. Uh, I truly believe, especially, not only from my own experience, but from many of my clients, that were so anxious to take the first offer, that we end up in a situation where we're blindsided by the culture. So it's really important to look under the covers, as I talk about in my first book, The Politics of Promotion. How many senior women are in leadership positions? Do they promote from within? Um, what is the representation of women? What is the culture like in that organization? You want to know that before
Hmm.
you make a leap.
So I saw a couple of questions like this, Bonnie. People are wondering who you think are great women leaders who other women can look to as role models. So other examples of women who are not done yet.
Oh, there's so many. I mean, Janet Yellen was just confirmed as the first woman who was going to run the Treasury Department. You know, Angela Merkel, Nancy Pelosi. I mean, there are so many women who are powerful who, you know, set a really great example. Gloria Steinem. Uh, just there are just so many powerful women over 50. I know that there's a new initiative on Forbes, 50 women over 50, and who are still making a difference in the world. And so they put out uh, a request for nominations, and they have like over 10,000 nominations.
Amazing.
But it doesn't need to be a celebrity. It doesn't need to be, you know, if you look around within your family, your friends, your community, you will find powerful women who are making a difference, who are 50 plus.
Certainly so. Um, so here's an interesting comment. Sharon, I think, shared this, that MBA programs often will not accept you after you're 30 or 31. Um, and she's wondering what it's like if you want to study business post 40. Are we not worthy or valuable anymore? I don't
Hmm.
know if you're
Well,
aware of those constraints
I
for
have
business
been,
schools.
I think I know people who are older than that, who've been in the MBA programs. Um, so I wasn't aware certainly of that, but there are probably, I mean, that shocks me actually. Not only that, it pisses me off. um,
Well, and I'm
so I
seeing some comments that there are people who have started programs post 50. Ping Wang says, I started my business school program, MSOD, when I was 53. And we did have an email prior to today's webinar from someone who was talking about ageism in an academic program.
right, she was in it already, and she was 58.
Yes, correct.
Right, right.
So definitely open to comments from women who have insights about that. So MIT has an MBA program that women have completed in their mid 50s and beyond. So it is curious that there are some
We
schools.
are at the prime of our careers. And for many of us, we have an empty nest for the first time. We are really free to expand our horizons in many ways. So I certainly hope that constraint is not there. Uh,
Indeed. Well, here's another listener who started Harvard Professional Ed at age 60. So we have
yeah.
one final poll that we want to get everyone's input on. And we would love to hear from you of these statements, which most resonates with you. These are reasons we are not done yet. And if you have additional ones, I'd welcome them in the chat and I can definitely read those out. So if you are over 50 and you are not done yet, as many of you have been putting in the chat, which of these reasons resonate with you most? I have experience and wisdom to offer. I'm smart. I'm curious and can still learn new things. I have value to offer. I bring a unique perspective because of my age or based on my age. Here's a comment from someone. Ageism exists, and while we're fighting it, we still need to get around it and somehow be able to work.
Yeah. That's why I wrote my book.
So let's talk about your book for a moment while people are answering the chat. I think you have one there, don't you? Can you show us? It's beautiful. Bonnie's book, not, oh, it fell on the floor. Bonnie's book, Not Done Yet, is coming in March 2nd?
March
March
9th.
9th. Oh, I'm off by a week. I'm so
Can
sorry.
you see it? Because I can't even see
Yeah, I
it.
can see it. It's
Okay.
gorgeous. And it is available for pre-order now. And we'll talk a bit more about that. I'm going to share the results to this poll quickly. So it looks like these are pretty equally popular, but two ideas that are resonating are I have experience and wisdom, I'm curious and can still learn new things. But really, this is
I
pretty
have
evenly
value to
distributed.
offer.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes to all of these.
Yes to all of it. And I hope you all really own it now that you put
Mhm.
that down.
For sure. So we have a special fun campaign related to Not Done Yet that we want to share with you as we come to the end of our webinar. If you have additional questions or comments, you can still put those in the chat. But Kelly, I'm hoping you can show the fun graphic that we created. To Bonnie's earlier point about, those of us who may be over 50 or nearing 50 and are active on social media channels, this is a Not Done Yet campaign for Instagram. You may have seen that people use images like this on their stories. The idea is that you fill in this template, which you can grab by visiting Bonnie's story today, and also visiting Bonnie's Instagram account will have this template available. You can fill in the reasons you're not done yet, and then tag 3 friends and encourage them to join the campaign as well. So we hope that one action you'll take as a result of today's webinar is to join this Not Done Yet campaign and share with the world why you're not done yet. So here's a couple of other ideas that came in the chat. Angie is not done yet because she has a commitment to lifelong learning that keeps her mind, body, and spirit young. Claire says she has energy that is not, let me see, sorry, it jumped ahead. I have energy that is evident to others. So thank you for sharing those, and thank you for those of you who have invested time with us. So a few things that you might want to do besides participate in this Not Done Yet campaign. We mentioned pre-ordering the book, and if you pre-order the book and visit Bonnie's website, you will also have the chance to get an invitation to her exclusive virtual launch party, which I'm going to host on the day of her launch. Is that right, Bonnie? And
Yes, March 9th.
March 9th. So if you're interested in spending more time with Bonnie in a more intimate Zoom meeting setting where you can talk with her face to face and maybe share your comments and questions, then we would encourage you to pre-order the book today. Then once you've pre-ordered the book, you can go to Bonnie's website and get that exclusive invitation to the launch party. And if you were with us or saw on Facebook, we were talking before the webinar started about the cool new Not Done Yet merchandise that Bonnie will soon have available. So stay tuned to Bonnie's social channels for the announcement. I personally want to get this t-shirt that says I'm over 50 and not done yet. There are several other t-shirt designs. Over 50 and still a badass. Is that what it is? Or
Yeah.
so all these amazing sayings from Bonnie's book that we can wear or, drink out of a coffee mug or carry in a water bottle or put on our phone case. And we'll be announcing the launch of that store very soon, just in the next few days, where you can get the Not Done Yet merchandise. We would also encourage you, if you have a group of women that you'd like to join with in a book club and you purchase 7 to 10 copies of Bonnie's book, she'll show up live to your Zoom meeting for that book club. And you can email Bonnie at Marcus Leaders at bonniemarcusleadership.com to find out more about the offer that's exclusive to book clubs who would buy 7 to 10 copies of the book. You can also email Bonnie to find out about some of her coaching programs, and we would encourage you to do that as well. Bonnie, did I miss any? Because I stopped looking at my notes.
Uh,
What are some ways we want people to engage? We want them to pre-order the book, pre-order it for a friend who might benefit from the message.
and if you're interested, you can go to my website and download a free chapter.
Awesome. Yes. And I think that Kelly has put all those links into the chat for you. And I know, Bonnie, that you would always love to hear from people. I'm personally going to be checking out Instagram because I'm curious to read all the ways that you are not done yet.
I wish there could be like a really big campaign where we could all hold up why we're not done yet. And this is the best way to do it virtually.
Indeed. So, Bonnie, do you want to send us out with any parting inspiration? What are you hoping that every woman who's listening today will do or believe about themselves and their careers from here forward?
Well, I think that my greatest wish would be that everyone is inspired and they feel empowered to own where they are in their life and career, to own all of their lessons learned, the journey that has taken them to where they are today, and understand that they have so much value. Yes, to contribute. We all do. And I think, if we could put something across our forehead that said not done yet to remind ourselves, that would be a really good thing.
Absent that, we can just wear the t-shirt every day, huh, Bonnie?
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Bonnie. Thank you for the value that you've added through this event today. There's tons of thanks in the chat. So thanks to all of you who have joined. Please share this webinar, the book, all of Bonnie's insights with other women who can benefit from this inspiration. Thanks, Bonnie.
Thanks.